Steven Jackson lit the match when he claimed no active player has truly balanced being a star on the floor while running a successful podcast off it. He pointed out that Draymond Green might look like the exception, but quickly added that Green's offensive role is so limited it doesn't really compare to the workload of a primary scorer. In Jackson's view, Draymond has the time to podcast because he isn't carrying the same scoring burden as guys like Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, or Luka Doncic. That critique hit home because Green has built one of the most visible player-run media platforms with the Draymond Green Show, turning post-game pressers into instant episodes that trend across YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. But Draymond wasn't about to let Jackson's comments slide. He fired back with a stinging clapback on social media, laughing at the notion and saying former players bark the darnest things and often forget they once had a chance to be more themselves. That subtle dig doubled as a flex, reminding fans that while his stat sheet might not scream superstar, his impact as a four-time champion, defensive player of the year, and cultural voice gives him a platform no other role player has ever owned. Steven Jackson's follow-up response took a sharp turn from direct shots to a cryptic warning that left fans guessing who the message was aimed at. Instead of naming Draymond Green outright, Jackson addressed the wider media landscape, calling out platforms that thrive on negativity and drama rather than substance. In his words, anyone building a show without credibility or real value would be over before they even make money. That statement hit like a veiled threat, a reminder that audiences see through manufactured controversy, and players who lean too heavy on stirring the pot risk burning out their brand. For longtime fans of Jackson, this was unusual. He's typically blunt, not one to dance around names. The fact that he chose a vague, almost ominous approach fueled speculation that Draymond was the intended target. Was this a shot at Green's quick trigger podcast takes, or a general warning to the new wave of player podcasters? Either way, the timing made it feel personal. Jackson positioned himself as the real one in the room, someone with authority to expose who's built to last in media and who isn't. The message was clear. Without substance, the spotlight fades fast. No matter how big the name, Steven Jackson's cryptic message stood out because it wasn't his usual style. Normally, Stack calls people out directly and leaves no doubt about who he's addressing. This time though, he left the target unclear. That ambiguity created a buzz. Was he really warning Draymond Green or speaking to a broader issue in the player podcast space? The lack of directness fueled speculation, with many fans convinced the timing meant Draymond was in his crosshairs, while others argued it might have been about someone else entirely. The uncertainty was amplified because Jackson and Draymond already have history. The video reminds us of the infamous practice incident when Draymond punched Jordan Poole, a moment that fractured the Warriors' locker room and shifted their chemistry overnight. Jackson was one of the loudest voices criticizing Draymond back then, saying a veteran should never sucker punch a younger teammate and urging him to repair the damage. That fallout lingered, ultimately pushing Poole out of Golden State and reshaping the roster. With that background, Jackson's latest comments hit harder. Whether or not he intended to call Draymond out, the tension from their past interactions makes every word sound like another chapter in a rivalry that refuses to cool off. Steven Jackson has never minced words about the infamous Draymond Green-Jordan Poole incident. From the jump, he made it clear that a veteran leader should never sucker punch a younger teammate, no matter the circumstances. Jackson stressed that conflicts happen in practice, but there's a line you don't cross, especially with a younger player still finding his place in the league. He even urged Draymond to step up as the big bro, admit he lost control, and apologize directly to Poole. In Jackson's eyes, that was the only way to truly repair the locker room and move forward, a message that echoed what many around the league felt but didn't say out loud. At the same time, Jackson's broader point about player media ventures holds weight. The video highlights how difficult it is to balance the demands of being a franchise cornerstone with running a podcast or media brand. Paul George is the prime example. His podcast P grew in popularity, but his on-court performance noticeably dipped, leaving fans questioning whether the distractions were catching up with him. Jackson wasn't just taking aim at Draymond, he was pointing out a real challenge for today's stars. You can dominate the league or you can dominate the media, but doing both at the same time is a rare accomplishment. The video also points to Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart as examples of how difficult it is to juggle a growing podcast with the pressures of leading a franchise. Despite playing in the biggest basketball market in the world, New York City, their show hasn't come close to the visibility or cultural weight of Draymond Green's The Draymond Green Show or Paul George's podcast P. And that's saying something because Brunson has been the lifeblood of the Knicks, revitalizing a franchise that had been stuck in mediocrity for nearly 2 decades. New York's expectations are sky high, and even a second-round playoff exit could push management to make major changes. With that kind of pressure, a side project like a podcast naturally takes a back seat. This comparison underscores Steven Jackson's original argument. Being a primary star while building a successful media brand is nearly impossible. Brunson is carrying the weight of the Knicks' hopes every night, and Hart plays a vital role as his running mate. But when it comes to their podcast, it simply hasn't broken into mainstream NBA conversation the way Draymond's has. The message is clear: star responsibilities demand everything, and unless you have a lighter on-court role, your media project will always fight for scraps of attention. From Draymond Green's point of view, Steven Jackson's comments were more than just casual criticism. They were a shot at his legacy. By framing Draymond's role as limited to dirty work, Jackson downplayed the value that has defined Green's entire career. Draymond isn't the Warriors' go-to scorer, but he's been the engine of their defense, the emotional leader, and the connector who makes Steph Curry and Klay Thompson even more dangerous. 4 championships, a Defensive Player of the Year award, and countless clutch playoff moments prove he's far more than a role player. So when Jackson suggested his media success only exists because he doesn't have the responsibilities of a star, Draymond saw it as disrespect to the very things that make him elite. His clapback wasn't just about defending his podcast, it was about defending his impact on one of the NBA's greatest dynasties. As the video wraps, it leaves the door open for where this tension might go. Maybe it fizzles out as just another round of veteran banter, but with 2 outspoken personalities, there's always the risk egos take over, and what starts as debate snowballs into beef. The audience is left hanging, urged to drop their thoughts and watch for what could be the next chapter in this escalating back and forth.